Welcome everyone. Today I thought I'd do something a little different. So we're having our open house today, and I'm going to give you a bit of a preview ahead of everybody else. So you can see the guys here have done an amazing job cleaning up the shop here, making it sort of suitable for everybody. So I'll give you a walkthrough down here and you'll see kind of what we've done. Everything's sort of been cleared out of here. And we've got the fuselage sitting over there on the gear, so everybody can get a good look at that and sit on board and see how things are. And we've got the model sitting over here on the table, so people can see what it looks like with the wings on it. And then we've just got some seating and stuff set up. And then over here we've got the engine. So let's start out over here. Got it back from the dyno shop and got it mostly back together. Still a few things that we need to do before we put the prop back on and get it started, but that'll probably be in the next week or so. We'll get it running again, and I have a bit more info on that I'll share with you shortly. And back over here you can see we've got the belt drive basically hooked up again, and everything's looking pretty nice with the engine frame in the powder coat that you saw a while ago. And still a bunch of things. We don't have the ECU right now. Ed's still got that, and he's remapping or flashing our ECU because we had the loaner one from Motec before. So he's flashing the one that we actually purchased with all the firmware. So we'll have that back in the next day or so. And instrument panels back in there, although that's really not doing that much for us now because we're capturing most of the information that's on there directly to the Motec ECU. So anyway, it's basically set up and got a few more things to do, as I said, and then we'll be putting the prop back on and probably have it running again within a week or so, and then dialing in this these other couple of issues that we have, and I'll talk more about that here shortly. Over here again we've got the model, so you've all probably seen this before if you've seen any of the other videos, and it's pretty much in the same condition it was when we left it after the last flight. It still has the telltales on the wing surfaces there and on the foreplane. So but anyway, that's here for everybody to sort of get a first-hand look at what it looks like. And then over here the fuselage is coming together. As you can see, seats are in, like you saw before in one of the previous videos. A new seat mounts in, you can see all the space under there. So it's pretty nice being able to put in like skis and snowboards and stuff in there with all that room. And then here the instrument panels coming together. You see you've got the two G3X units sitting there, and I've just basically put a printout on the screen there just to show you people who aren't familiar with those what the screen looks like when it's on, because obviously we don't have the power hooked up or anything yet. And then we've got the GTN 750 mounted in there, and below that we have the climate control unit, the head unit for the one we're using, that basically just displays your cabin temperature that you have set, and you can adjust things like where the air flows out and whether it's feed or defrost or out the vents, the regular vents. So, and as you can see, we've got some of the vents in here, and so these ones basically you just sort of press them like that and they open up, and then you can turn them and angle them like that, so they're kind of neat. Have those, and we have them in the front on both sides, and also, not sure how I can show you here, around in the back in here for the back seats as well there. And then we've got the overhead console is in here, and that's not bonded in yet. It's basically just temporarily clecoed, and I think a couple of rivets just holding that in, but the lights are in and they're actually operational. I think they're on. Yep, so you see the lights are working there on those, so that's kind of neat. And we have the autopilot head unit in there, and we have the throttle control. I'll just sit in here. Have the throttle control sitting in here, so you can just push that forward and back. I don't have a cover plate on here yet, but basically the throttle's there, and you can sort of get a feel for how that is. Obviously one for each side because of how wide the cabin is, and also we have the side sticks in here, and just cover them because a lot of people are going to be putting their hands on those, and we didn't want them to get all grubby. So anyway, we still need to work on the smoothness of this with the elevator. It's just not exactly as good as what I want it to be, and we've got a few ideas on that, and I think it's because that those blocks that we have are just rubbing a little bit on the sliders when it's under pressure from one side or the other. When it's straight up and down, it's pretty smooth, but when you have it cranked over, it sort of binds a little bit. But anyway, we'll sort it out. I've got a couple of good ideas on that. And you see, actually Jeff went to the trouble, just as an example to show how things would look, of covering this center stack with ultra suede here, and just in the grey, the same sort of stuff that we use when we're doing our window mounts. Our window fixtures that we did for cutting the windows back a long time ago. So that looks pretty nice. And you know, you can imagine the center console having the same treatment, and the whole glare shield here having the same treatment. So, and then of course we got a switch panel up here. None of those are hooked up yet, but they're all the ones that we're going to basically have for now initially. So that's coming along, and just to give you an idea, this is kind of the sight picture here for in the right hand seat. When you have the seat all the way up, that's pretty much what you're going to see. So you can see nicely over the top of the glare shield here, and then see the frame of the window there. But you know, you have really good forward visibility, and there's no big engine cowling or anything like that in your way like a regular aircraft. So that's kind of like what the open house is all about, and people are going to get to sit in here, and we're going to have the webcam set up, and I'll give you a link to that shortly, so you can tune in during the course of the day and just see people milling around and such. And of course we'll have the doors open because it's going to be about 75 degrees tomorrow. Anyway, so that's kind of how things are working out for us for the open house. So and then I've got a little bit more of an update to give you on some other things. So just to show you as well, down here on the nose gear we have the landing light and the taxi light installed, as well as the tow bar hook. So that's another thing that's now sorted out, and it's looking nice. As you can see, fuselage is really starting to come together now. And a bit more of an update on the engine progress. So after speaking with Ed some more, and also with Grant at Turbo Kits, and just going over these numbers, we've sort of analysed what's really happening with the two different turbos. And the first one is performing okay, although the wastegate is opening too early at only 7 pounds of boost, where it should be more like 15. So we're going to adjust that with a different wastegate controller, and also probably put a solenoid on there so we can actually have much more granular control over when that opens, especially for testing at altitude. And then with the second turbo, we're going to go ahead and put that, or probably going to go ahead and put a tile wastegate in there, the one that we had before, because we're just not getting enough of the flow from the hot side being released, and so the turbo is definitely sort of creeping there and just sort of uncontrolled boost. So we'll sort that out, and you'll see more on that later. And using the numbers coming out of the second turbo there, and this is the one we have, the GTX 2871R, Grant has been able to basically figure out for us what he thinks is the horsepower that was being generated in that one run that you saw. So really what it comes down to is the boost on that one was 2.7 bar. And so the pressure ratio, and how you do that is basically look at the turbo map. And so the pressure ratio we had, well, actually it was sort of 2.79, so closer to 2.8. So you look at that on this chart, and you see, looking up the left side there, carry across there, so 2.8 is where the red line is, and you basically carry it across to the middle point. And he's using the middle point there because the turbo seems to be operating smoothly and in the efficient range there. So this is again a bit of an estimate, but yeah, sort of move over to where the dotted line is there in the center of the map, and then from there read downwards. And by doing that, you come up with about 43 on the corrected airflow, pounds per minute of airflow. And it's pretty common knowledge that if you take that corrected airflow and multiply it by around about 10 or 10.5, depending on the efficiency of your engine, you can come up with the amount of horsepower being generated. So basically doing that, just multiply out 43 by 10, or let's just say, you know, be conservative, by 10, that's about 430 horsepower. So even though, you know, the turbo was sort of over boosting there and got to 27 pounds of boost, which is basically the 2.7 bar. It was hitting around about, or probably hitting around about 430 horsepower, which is pretty impressive, but it's not unexpected for the size of the turbo that we have and the fact that we have the compound setup. But the good news is that's basically kind of where we want it to be. And extrapolating from other numbers that have been taken from this particular engine with sort of similar horsepower amounts, Audi actually has one where they've taken it to 380 horsepower, and at that horsepower level it was putting out 550 foot-pounds of torque. So we can pretty much extrapolate on that and say that we're probably in the same ballpark, getting at least 550 foot-pounds of torque, which is more than what we wanted. So, but anyway, just being sort of, you know, conservative on there. Once we get it on a proper dyno that is working correctly, we're obviously going to find out the real numbers for horsepower and torque. But anyway, let's look at another way of calculating that. So I found another website that has a calculator that can help us with this. So this one here, you put in the engine RPM, and so on that particular run we hit 4,000 RPM, and the engine size, and this is in I guess milliliters, or yeah, so we put 3,000 in there, so that's a 3-liter engine. And the volumetric efficiency, so on a diesel it's normally around about 90%, and you know, probably for the Audi engine that's fairly accurate. And the boost pressure that we were getting was 1.8 because that's basically what it is plus the atmospheric pressure of 1 bar, so 1.8 bar. And so down there the results come out from that. So the pressure ratio was 2.8, and that's what we actually saw on the chart. And then you can see the CFM, but the one we really want there is the amount of air in pounds per minute. And so this one's basically saying 37, whereas before we were looking at the one that was saying around about 43. So this is a little bit lower, but even if we just be conservative and multiply that by the number 10, we still end up with 370 horsepower, which is kind of the number I was really shooting for. And none of this really even takes into account the extra boost that we're going to get from the first turbo, especially down at sea level. But we're really in the ballpark for where I wanted to be. And the turbo, and actually Grant really agrees that the turbos have been sized really well, and we just basically got it right the first time. And once we actually get back with Drake and get the engine finely tuned, we'll have even more power available. But the really good thing is that we're getting it at a very efficient operating sort of RPM, or if you want to put it like that, for the turbo. So the turbos are not going to be overworked or anything like that, which means you know, they should last a long time, and we'll not have to worry about sort of overstressing them or the engine or anything like that. So we're going to get all the torque that we were really looking for in the low end, and plenty of horsepower as well. So I'm pretty happy about the results from that. And of course, you know, again, it's all just math that we're calculating here, and we'll have to wait and see how it really pans out when we get it on a proper dyno. But it's pretty exciting to see that we've got probably at least 370 horsepower there, and probably even more, like 450 horsepower, and the torque will be somewhere between 500 and 550 foot-pounds, which is gobs for what we need. So super excited about that, and again, we'll just have to wait and see how it comes out on the real dyno test when we get to that later on. And finally, during the open house today, we're going to have our Nest Cam turned on, so you can watch live during the open house. So that's between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern. So just go to this URL, and I've actually posted it in the video description below, so you can just click on it below, and you'll be able to check out and see everybody sort of milling around and looking at the fuselage and the model and all that good stuff. So anyway, I hope you enjoy that, and of course in the next video update I'll have some actual video of during the open house and get people's comments and things like that to share. So that's our update for this week, and thanks again for watching.